More
Oh, we can see you. It's fine. Oh, we're
okay.
live. Hello.
We're live. Hello, welcome to a bonus episode of Fanning Out with our usual guests, myself, Dave and Maddie, and our special guest, Mika Todd.
Hi.
Hi. Of Coconuts Musume and Mini Money fame. So, partly what I want to talk about in this episode, because this topic is Japanese pop culture, and having had that experience, you've experienced Japanese pop culture from inside the bubble looking out.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
That was actually over a decade ago.
wow.
Really?
It still,
I know, time flies. It's crazy.
but I still think it's going to be relevant because when I watch shows, excuse the cough, shows that you were in back then and watch modern Japanese shows, the format is still the same. There's still a host talking over the guests far too much. There's still words coming up on screen with silly sound effects. So I don't really...
Don't you love those fonts with like bold colors and
Yeah, don.
so animated? I love it.
Mhm. And is it a different experience, like when you're sitting there shooting it and then you watch it later, is it different to how you expected it to appear? Or does it happen live?
Some shows are live and others are pre-taped.
Mhm.
I think a lot of those shows that we were on, obviously we were on it as a group, so it's very, the word I'm looking for is, I'm thinking in Japanese, like, moriagateru is like very lively. So
Oh, okay.
in that moment, it felt like what it was like looking at the taping afterwards. I think it would be funnier because you see the fonts with like big bright colors. So it's a little bit over exaggerated, which made it a lot more fun to watch. But it's always interesting to see how things get edited afterwards too.
Hmm. Do the edits make it? Do they ever make it so unbelievably different? It's almost like you were on a different show.
Um, yes and no. It's been a while, so I'm trying to remember what it
Hmm.
was like. Um, a lot of things would get cut out.
Hmm.
So, um, and I think it varied. It just all depended.
Right. Okay. Also, I want to talk about, and we can all answer this question. Usually, I start each episode by asking everyone their earliest memories of that week's topic. So, because you're our guest, Mika, what are your earliest memories of Japanese pop culture?
Earliest memories, before I actually was a part of Coconuts Musume or Mini Moni, I grew up because my mother's Japanese. I did spend some time in Japan, visiting in summers or even growing up in Hawaii. I would watch Japanese TV shows. So my earliest memories would be of that. Just thinking that how fun it would be to be in the Japanese entertainment industry.
Hmm. So, so was it a dream come true for you? I guess it must have been, a young girl gets to be a pop star. It must
It
have been
definitely was. It
yeah.
was very exciting. It was exciting, and but I think I went into it not knowing what to expect,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, which was I guess a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because when you're so young, um, going into the entertainment industry, you don't really have a true sense of yourself yet. So
Mm-hmm.
you become molded into what they want you to be,
Right.
which and then you kind of lose that artistry.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I see. So you've lost all individuality. You sing this, you wear
exactly,
this, you do as you're told, basically.
exactly.
Right.
Do you
So
ever start to think? Do you ever start to think of yourself in terms of like the character that they've created for you? Do you ever sort of start to buy it yourself?
Um, for me, it was a character that it was a persona that I put on as Minimoni Mika, but
mhm.
um, that wasn't who I was, off
Yeah.
screen, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was an on-screen you and a very definite off-screen you.
Yes.
Did you ever get the feeling that any of the other people worked with, like Dave asked, they sort of believed their own character? Or were they all very definitely, there's on-screen me, there's off-screen me?
Because, well, for example, Minimoni was
Hmm.
very, it was targeted towards a younger audience. I think Kago-chan and Tsuji-chan, that was their true selves.
Hmm.
But for myself and even Yaguchi-san, we were a little bit older going into it, so it was you know, especially if you see us in different subgroups, like Yaguchi-san was part of like Morning Musume Yaguchi-san, and there was like the Mini Moni Yaguchi-san. There were two separate Yaguchi-sans. There was like the sexy Yaguchi-san, and then there was the Mini Moni, quirky personality she put on. So it's different. You kind of start to divide things or divide different characters into different groups.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. So, Dave, do you have any experience with J-pop culture going through everyone's earliest memories? You must have some memories of some
Probably.
Japanese cartoon.
Oh, cartoons. Yes. I mean, I'm not going to be much use on this one because it's that there wasn't so much of a sort of right now here in the UK now. Um, Japanese culture is all over the place because of the internet, and so you know that's happened. But before that happened, before the internet, there wasn't so much of a. It hadn't seeped through quite so much. We were a bit more insular generally in those days, and we had sort of. I mean, we had Japanese cartoons. Nobody called them anime yet, and in fact, it wasn't. They weren't in any way separated out from non-Japanese cartoons at all, to the extent that this is true. When I was a kid, I thought that anything I saw, which I now realise was Japanese cartoon, I thought was made by one company, and that was they had a sort of recognizable house style, um,
Mhm.
which was different in each show, but they had a certain way of animating mouths in common, which American cartoons didn't, and British cartoons, which we still had in those days, didn't. And so that I misinterpreted as a one studio's house style. Um, so they were honestly just played alongside everything else, and it wasn't really until the internet and in like the late '90s that things started to separate out, and now you had now here are the Japanese things and here are the non-Japanese things essentially, because you had all of the kids who were into anime and from that and games, and from that a general interest in everything else. I mean, I don't think I'd seen so much as a Hello Kitty before the internet. Um, I think they were around, but I wasn't aware of them. Um, so, so yes. Oh, and by the way, I must apologise to our guest in advance because I really didn't sleep very much last night, so I might be a bit incoherent today as well. And I'm on a delay, so if it ever sounds like I'm interrupting everybody, that's why. So, sorry about that in advance. So yes, that really, I'm very much inexpert this week, but I can tell you that since then, we now have an awful lot of Japanese sort of culture, particularly among young people who are, well, I say Japanese culture, it's an appropriation of it that they've kind of come to by way of the internet. And I see that, because I work in comics and things like that, so whenever I'm exhibiting at comic conventions, that's when you meet a lot of people who have taken on board a lot of that and have really made it part of themselves. And of course, cosplay is now a huge thing, and used to be relegated only to parties, and we called it fancy dress. But now it's a thing that you do at conventions and in public and in gatherings and so on. And so you meet a lot of kids who are very much sort of steeped in the kind of internet version of Japanese culture.
Right.
But I don't know much about it myself, so I shall mainly be a listener this week.
Right. So, Miko, in Japan, what is it like in reverse with like American culture coming to Japan?
Coming to Japan, well, I think for myself, there was still a bit of a struggle because I wasn't born and raised quite in Japan until my teen years, until I, had the experience of being a part of Minimori and Coconuts Musume. So there are things that that were culturally different, I guess. Sometimes there are things that everyone else thought would be funny, but I wouldn't quite think they were funny. So I guess that in that sense there was like cultural differences.
But also, like the, for example, like American cartoons, because with me growing up, I grew up with like Astro Boy, Voltron, so I got a lot of Japanese cartoons that were Americanized. I'm just wondering, are you aware of like American cartoons that become Japaneseized?
Okay. American cartoons, not that I'm aware of. Like I don't. Looking back, I don't remember seeing like Batman or Superman much in. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly what I'm asking. Like Batman the animated series, but turned Japanese somehow.
Right, like I see what you're saying. Like in America we'd see like Godzilla or Japanese cartoons Sailor Moon, right? But yeah, I don't recall seeing like American cartoons, in Japan. Yeah, I don't recall that at all.
That's really interesting, because over here in, like, well, I say over here, in America mainly, but then we got them as well. There was an obsession in the sort of, in the 90s, and before that, not an obsession, but just a sort of carte blanche, it was just a thing they did, to take anything that it looked like could be sold here and in America, and then dub over it, and if necessary, completely change it. And of course, the obvious one is Power Rangers, isn't it? Where they literally refilmed half the series and made it completely different and made it American. And I think there was, see, the one that sort of kids who were, I think, a bit younger than me, just a bit younger than me, in the 90s bring up is the Samurai Pizza Cats, which was an example of where they took a cartoon, didn't even, as far as I'm aware, know what was happening in it, and just made up their own script completely out of whole cloth, in the style of, well, I don't know how many of you are overly familiar with the Magic Roundabout, but that's something we had here in the UK where they did that in the 60s, or was it 70s? I don't know, one of those, probably both, and so they did that with Samurai Pizza Cats, but before that, I'm pretty sure they stuck to what was roughly happening in the episodes, but there was no, it wasn't important to be faithful, to have a faithful translation ever before about, well, I don't know, the last 10 years, really.
Well,
before that, it was... Go on.
Yeah, I think, again, that's because of the internet. Because before the internet, they could have translated anyway, but now a person can get it from the internet illegally. see it in Japanese, and they'll know exactly what's been changed when it becomes Americanized.
That's right. When they translate and dub into English anime now, nearly everyone watching it, arguably, is going to be comparing it to a previous fan dub they may have seen, and I think maybe this is just because I'm not too steeped in this myself, but it seems to me that perhaps less anime is getting translated officially now. And I think we've just started seeing series like Attack on Titan pop up on Netflix that are just subtitled, and they've gone with that because everyone knows now that. Oh, I don't know. I think we've settled into this sense of, well, why change it when anyone who's interested is going to be able to read the subtitles and will be more interested in that sense of getting the true, sense of what the performances are supposed to be like and what it's supposed to be like.
I'm always suspicious when I get a DVD of an anime that doesn't have the original Japanese content on there and it's an English dub only.
Yeah.
Mika, are you at all still interested in Japanese pop culture? Like, is it a part of your life at the moment, or is it still something that's in your past?
It's not a part of my everyday life, but I do get news here and there, and I do watch some Japanese anime cartoons. So it's not a part of my everyday life, no. But I don't know. Like, I hear a little bit here and there about what's going on.
Okay.
I'm incredibly interested to know if it's been a help or a hindrance with your current activities. Does it come up professionally at all? Is it a feature on the resume, or is it kept a little bit to the side?
It's funny. It's when people find out what that I used to be a part of a Japanese pop group, they always ask me about it, and it's not something I bring up generally, so they're always kind of surprised when they find out about it. But it was definitely a learning experience. It's helped shape me into who I am today. But as far as it's not something that comes up it's not something I use for everyday purposes, no.
So you don't try to cash in at all? There's no name dropping or anything like that going on?
No, not at all, not at all. Even when I was doing it in Japan, I always felt like I was actually an outsider looking in. It almost felt a little surreal to me that I was even a part of it.
Right.
I'm curious, because you mentioned that your earliest encounters with it was being a young girl in Hawaii, which is America for all intents and purposes. I mean, it's illegally America, but I think most of us in the rest of the world don't realize it's American.
Exactly.
But you said but you grew up wanting, like, you saw it obviously through your mother, and your father's Australian, is that right? Born in Australia?
Yeah, he's actually from Perth.
That's almost Australian.
Is Perth the Hawaii of Australia then? Because I thought that I don't know the difference.
I think Perth's more like the Alaska of America. It's so far away that I'm not even sure they speak English over there, but anyway. No, because my earliest encounters with it, as I've said a lot to the guys on the show, are a little bit more niche-y, because I had an uncle who invested a lot of money in the early 80s on getting his hands on VHS tapes that would have included, band concerts, TV shows, dramas. Just he used to mail order a lot of stuff in that wasn't necessarily, spoon-fed on the television. So that idea of being an American girl dreaming of being a Japanese pop star, was there anyone else that was sharing that with you when you were younger? Because nobody when I was growing up had any idea of the kind of music that I like to listen to via all of these bootleg tapes and things. So were you an outsider even then?
No, because in Hawaii, I had a lot of friends that were half Japanese, half American. So they could relate to that same dream as well. So it actually wasn't such a foreign concept.
But also Hawaii is like very popular with, or was then very popular with Japanese. Lots of Japanese tourists. When I was there in 2007, it was every
Yeah,
other tourist was Japanese.
yeah. There are a lot of local Japanese people that reside there, and a huge Japanese tourism as well.
hmm Yeah, I haven't told my earliest memories of Japanese pop culture.
That's true.
I did skim over it. I have multiple entry points into Japanese pop culture. And like Dave, as a child growing up, was watching Astro Boy, Voltron, Robotech, which I later found out is the Macross Saga, not knowing they were Japanese.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I read it in a magazine or something somewhere that linked. It clicked in my head that, oh, if that's Japanese, then every other cartoon that looks like that must also be Japanese. Then I went out of my way and started hunting for cartoons that I couldn't otherwise find. Like, I'm aware of the cartoon Captain Harlock. I only ever saw 2 episodes of it because there was a VHS available at the video store in my hometown that had 2 episodes of Captain Harlock and 2 episodes of Captain Future. So when I ask local people that I know had a passing interest in anime, they're like, "What? Never heard of it." Whereas they've all heard of Akira. Here in Australia, it was really Akira that broke anime out into the mainstream.
Oh, I thought you were telling us that Akira was called Captain Future in Australia.
No. Captain Future's a cartoon from the same era as space battleship Yamato, known in the West as
Right.
Star Blazers. Then so there was Akira, and a whole bunch of movies came in. Akira, Ninja Scroll, and various other ones, and those people animated the Animatrix, but the Matrix is a topic for another day. Then there was the Super Nintendo, which that got me in. I love my video games. That actually came at I guess, a very dark point in my life where I just wasn't going to school. I got up at 1 p.m. and stuff. Then the Super Nintendo came along. I was getting up at 8 a.m. I was loving the Super Nintendo. Anyway, then many years later, it was actually in 2006, I discovered the Hello Project. And that was when I no longer had a passing interest in Japanese pop culture. I had a vested interest, which became a passion for all Japanese pop culture. The music, the drama, the history, the works, really. There was a moment on Christmas Day in the year 2000 when I got a PlayStation 2 and a video game called Ketsen. And this stands out in my mind because I had a vision. Because that video game is based, accurately based on Japanese history about how Tokugawa Ieyasu conquered all of Japan and brought it all together. I just thought to myself, what will become of my life if I followed this path, as in follow up in Japanese culture? And I just
not
had
if
a
you
vision
conquered Japan, then.
say that again, sorry?
I thought you were saying if I follow this path of conquering Japan. I'm glad you're not going down that route.
Well, in a way, it could be considered conquering, but I had a vision of myself standing at the front of a class giving a lesson, which at the time I assumed was a Japanese history lesson, although given the path I'm going on now, it's probably an English lesson. So I'm just studying to get my TEFL certificate, teaching English as a foreign language, which is what I'm doing now. So it was really the discovery of the Hello Project that really got me as deep into it as I am now. The initial discovery was Ayaka's surprise English lessons.
Oh,
At the time, I didn't realize there was a pop group. I thought Ayaka was just some girl randomly going around a hotel or something like that. But then my friend clued me in. Then I looked up the songs, loved the music, Yeah, so that was my various entries into Japanese pop culture.
I
Was
find the
Wait, Mika.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I'm,
all
I'm
I
so
was going to say was that I find the Hello Project the most interesting part of Japanese pop culture, and also the part that hasn't translated across to the West at all. Just period. No one's doing anything remotely like it anywhere in the world except in Japan. So that's
Mm,
definitely something that I find thoroughly interesting to study. So
mm,
swap.
yeah.
I was actually going to ask, was it confusing um, when you started looking into Hello Project about, you know, different groups and subgroups, and it was hard for me to explain to other people what Hello Project was all about. So I'm curious, when you found out about Hello Project, were you a bit perplexed by what was going on with it?
Here's what confused me. I go to YouTube, I type in Morning Musume, and I get various songs, and I see different girls singing
Right.
different songs. I'm like, hang on, are these the same group? So then I had to research into it and how it all began with Sharon Q looking for a lead singer or something like that. And like, you can notice there's chunks in eras. The very early Morning Musume songs are so different to what the fans call the golden era Morning Musume songs. And even the songs that are coming out now are different again to those songs. You can sort of tell what era you're in. But it
Right.
was very confusing.
I love the first generation Morning Musume songs. Um, I think it was Memory no Seishun. I don't know if you know which song that is, or what was or Summer Night Town as
Oh,
well.
that Summer Night Town. Didn't Musume didn't do an English cover
We
of that?
did we did an English cover of that one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and when I saw W as their own act off to the side because I came across them very early. Again, I was confused. I'm like, are these part of it? Are they separate? I see them in that video and I see them in separate videos.
Right.
But W got me into liking older songs because the majority of their songs were cover songs. So I went out of my way to find the original songs and I found most of them on YouTube.
Mhm.
So then I discovered, what was that group's name? Peanuts? The really old
That's
pop
cartoon.
group. No, not the old one. This in the
Uh,
film clip, they're standing in front of a fountain. Digga digga dun. Paya paya. How does that song go?
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that, and I got into more songs from that group because of that. But to answer your question, yes, the whole rotation thing confused the heck out of me.
Yeah.
But then luckily I found some forums online and they had the group separated and they had like an info for, beginners start here, and I looked up Wikipedia and I slowly came together over a period of about 2 weeks. I finally got it all together in my head.
Got it.
So, for the sake of Dave and everyone else watching, I'm not the best authority in this chat, but would somebody like to explain the organizational structure of the Hello Project? Because I think it's fascinating, but I don't quite know it as inside out as other people.
Right, Mika, do you want to answer that? Or will I have a go at answering it and you can correct me?
Um. Well, I think base of it starts from Morning Musume, which Tsunku-san basically produces, and from there, I think Morning Musume just became such a big hit, and from there they started doing subgroups. I'm trying to remember. It was Morning Musume, and then after that, I think they Tsunku-san founded Coconuts Musume or Country Musume. I can't remember the order of that. And then there came along Melon Kinembi, Um, yeah, it's actually even kind of, I'm not even quite sure anymore. It's hard to remember. Then, as I think with Morning Musume, they would graduate members as well, and then, you know, audition for new members. So it was always changing. It was like a revolution. Or evolution just kept changing.
Yeah, I think they're up to 12th generation now at the moment.
So I'm not up to date on this at all. I've heard of these things, but I don't know much about them. So am I right in thinking that this is essentially a pop group but run like a TV show with cast members and almost
It's good analogy.
That's an interesting way.
Yeah.
They have competitions and all kinds of things to kind of rank themselves inside their own groups, and there's a whole subculture that's popped up out of, from what it sounds like, and I didn't realize that it wasn't. I mean, I know the initial formation of Morning Musume was kind of a haphazard, here's an opportunity to do something, but I'm curious as to how much the rest of it was actually planned by the mastermind, or has he just kind of gone, oh, another opportunity, boom, oh, another opportunity, boom, because the whole thing's so complicated and it's so big, and it's,
it is very complicated. I think, I don't know what the mastermind behind it. I think it was, they would see, certain members would have like a more popularity, so they would branch them off into different subgroups, and basically, I don't know if the goal was to try to get them into a solo career, after that, individually. I think it would to try to gain more popularity individually into those groups, and then in hopes that they would have their own solo career after that.
So the subgroups, would they take someone who was really popular in the one group and then put them over there with a new group, so that you now have two bands with someone popular in both, so you've got, a wider spread then, or was that what it was?
I think so. Yeah, I think it would, to help kind of gain more popularity for the new group or the next group coming up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the most popular, easily girl who went on to a solo act would be Maki Goto, who's retired.
Mm-hmm.
Then she eventually went away from Hello Project into Avex. Did an album with Sweet Black. I forget the name of the group, but it was that group featuring Maki Goto, so it was their album, and she was the front singer for it. She performed a bit more, and now she's retired. So, but it's interesting to me that she was the only one that really did that well, because other solo acts just sort of fade away. They do television appearances less and less, and they just sort of end up. They're still there in Hello Project, but they're just sort of in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's, with that, if it's just more and more they kind of realize that maybe they kind of outgrow it a little bit, or it could be a part of it. Yeah.
So
that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So for you, like when you left, was there an opportunity to like re-sign? It was like, okay, do you re-sign the contract for another few years, or do you move on?
From when I left, it was a personal choice for me. Because I had gone into it when I was 15, and so when I left, when I made the decision to leave, I was 20. So I actually wanted to experience other things. I wanted to kind of find myself as an artist. And I think during that journey, I realized how much I kind of didn't have that time to get to know myself, because I think during your teen years, those are your crucial years of really learning about yourself. And so I took a break off to get to know myself, but yeah, I don't know, that was what it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think if I wanted to, I could have stayed and in hopes that maybe work up to having like a solo career there. But for me personally, I think what I wanted to do musically, I knew wouldn't be possible with Hello Project.
I see. I think that's partly why Maki Goto left, because she wanted her own. She wanted to do things her way by the time she was at that level and that famous. She was like, I'm famous enough now that you should let me have my own control, which is why she went to Avex eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no idea how much control she had over there.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly interested to hear everybody's thoughts. Dave is an outsider. Ian and I knowing a little bit more about it, and yourself being an American and a Japanese former pop star. The recent, well, it was a recent debacle in Australia, appropriation of the Hello Kitty ideology by Avril Lavigne. Did that make it over there, Dave? It made headline news over here.
I don't know, because I realise as you say that I'm also relatively disconnected from pop culture here. I think I'm just an internet person now, but I can tell you it made it as far as here on the internet.
Yep.
Yes, there was a bit of discussion about that. Is it not offensive? Can't confess to have actually watched it myself, so I mainly just saw people say it's bad, it's good,
It's bad.
I have no idea about this. It's
Oh, really?
disconnected from pop culture. I am as well. This is like new news to me.
I have to admit, now I think about it, it was on some local television networks here, but it was definitely more of an internet thing. So, dear old Avril Lavigne, who somehow still has a career as a pop star, released a song that the lyrical content has no reference at all to any San Reno products or anything like that. And there's a very obvious overdub at the start and the end of the song where she mangles some generic Japanese pleasantries with her Canadian accent. They then shoot probably one of the cheapest videos I've seen for someone of her caliber in what is supposed to be iconic locations in general Japan, but just looks like the back of any American suburb to me. And then people tore her to shreds over it. It was really, really bad. She got some almost
a lot of people thought it was racist and offensive.
pretty bad. Yeah, the backing dancers were all incredibly generic. They were chosen. They all had similar features. They were given wigs that were the same. Their costumes were the same, and everything that she did could have easily and was easily interpreted as being mocking different parts of the culture, and it sparked this huge debate about, I guess even though she's Canadian, she's considered an American singer by 90% of the world, and their appropriation of other cultures. And it was this huge internet debate. It was fantastic to just sit back and watch people tear each other apart about, I'm a bigger fan than this, and I know more about that than you, and it was just fantastic. But what did you think of it, Dave?
Me, I not much. I didn't see very much about it. I mean, I just saw. I don't have anything to say really. I just saw a couple of people say that's offensive, and a couple of people say that's really offensive, and I don't think I saw anyone say it wasn't. But I don't think I was really paying attention.
For me, I thought when I initially saw it, I thought, okay, that's just it's made to look like whoever made it thinks a Japanese pop music video looks like. And when I saw it, I thought, well, it's terrible, but I didn't actually personally find it offensive. But when I read on various forums, it's offensive because ... That's then I thought to myself, hang on, if you're offended by that, then you're thinking far too much about something that's going to be irrelevant in like 6 weeks.
Mm.
I didn't see the...
That seems to have panned out. I haven't heard of it recently, have you?
Yeah, it just sort of faded. There was a big, massive flame war on the internet, and then it just faded away. But the way she was dressed, and like Maddie said, the backgrounds were just very stereotypically Japanese. As I said, it's what whoever made it, that's what they think a Japanese music video looks like,
But
which it
none of
isn't.
was iconic.
Yeah, they missed the subtleties of a Japanese pop video.
It was very clearly an afterthought. It was fantastic. The piece de resistance was the song was co-written by her husband, who is of course the lead singer of Nickelback. So go and check the song out. It is terrible songwriting. It's a shockingly cheap film clip. It's the whole appropriation of the foreign culture aside. It's hilarious. It's a train wreck. It's worth a watch. It's brilliant.
Also, just Mika, going back a bit in the conversation, you said you do watch some animes. I'm sure people watching this would be curious to know which animes those are.
Oh, well, the reason why I watch them is because my boyfriend Kale, he likes watching Japanese anime, so I would watch a little bit of Attack on Titan with him. But I watched a few episodes of Death Note with him. What else? Oh, there's a great one that's on Netflix. It's called Mushishi.
Mushishi.
Mushishi. That's a
Okay.
great one as well. Trying to think. What else?
You should, if you haven't already, you should check out Sword Art Online.
Sword Art?
Yeah, Sword Art Online.
Sword Art on. Okay.
Yeah, very much inspired by Dot Hack, if you remember that anime.
Don't know. I actually don't remember that anime.
That was
okay.
not a. That's not an easy to watch one.
Yeah, it is a bit cerebral, you might say.
Yes.
But the creator of Sword Art Online has admitted that he was heavily influenced by Dot Hack.
Okay, interesting. I'll definitely check it out. Sword Art.
Have you checked out the Sailor Moon reboot? It started about 6 weeks ago.
No, I haven't actually. I was a huge Sailor Moon fan as a little girl. Did love the Sailor Moon cartoons.
Yeah, there's a whole new HD, 1080p, fantastic new theme song, new animations. It's all bright and colorful, and they've stuck pretty true to the original. It's like it's a reboot done properly, from my perspective. They've still got, the talking cat and the various sailors introduced each week, and the stories are very much the same. So definitely check out the new Sailor Moon if you get a chance.
Definitely.
Can I make a confession here? I haven't seen the old Sailor Moon yet. When I was first getting on the internet when I was 15, it was, that was 97, which was that maybe when it was made or something. It was certainly very popular then.
It did come out around then.
Yeah, and I never saw it because at the time I was 15 and we were all having arguments, and I guess I must have had friends who were into it who I argued with, so I was like, right, I'm never going to watch that then. And so I wonder if I would be able to appreciate this reboot, having not seen the old one. I wonder.
You'd probably have a different kind of appreciation for it.
Yeah.
I don't feel so bad because I think it mainly girls watched it. So
Yes.
yeah. So
Maybe that was it. Maybe I still had that last bit of like, no, that's for girls. I'm not watching that.
It was like, I remember growing up, Dragon Ball Z was for boys, and then Sailor Moon was for girls.
This was I was telling my friend Brentalfloss about this last night. There was this. I feel like those two cartoons and Final Fantasy VII were what made anime a thing in America. There was, or if not, they happened at that exact same time. It was kind of, it was there, and then those three, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Final Fantasy VII, so you had like boys' cartoons, girls' cartoons, which was still very much a thing then, and then games. And so that was all the three angles that you needed to get internet teenagers, which there weren't many of in those days. It was the first sort of generation of those to be obsessed. And that's what happened. And suddenly, you know, of course, there was this huge... I hit my microphone then. There was this huge anime sort of explosion then. And you know... And of course now, I mean, if you look at as I say, I don't know much about Japanese pop culture, but what I do know is I know it as internet culture, because it's almost the same thing. I would say probably a majority of internet culture has its roots there, or at least in, as I say, the kind of sort of slightly confused misinterpretation of Japanese pop culture through Western eyes, because of course, you know, at least particularly in those first few years, at the end of the 90s when it was starting to take off, none of us understood anything of what we were seeing. So we saw things that were, you know, decades old, sort of established tropes, you know, as familiar to any Japanese viewer as the light bulb over the head means idea in the West, that sort of thing. And we saw them all as like completely original. Like every time, if we saw a cartoon that used, you know, the sweat drop on the forehead, we would be like, oh, that cartoon invented that. And everything felt new, and we just got it. We just got it wrong. We just didn't know about that stuff. So we kind of, so like, I remember there's still a part of me that thinks that the idea of the sweat drop is from Pokemon, for example. And it can't be, but I guess that must be where I saw it.
I think Astro Boy, the guy who created Astro Boy, is known as the father of anime, modern anime.
Grandfather, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. But getting to Pokemon, now you've got a cartoon that is equally both for boys and girls.
Yes.
But also, Pokemon comes across to me as a cartoon that is intentionally made for an American audience.
Yeah?
It just seems a very sort of American cartoon.
I never thought of it that way before. I mean, there are obvious points of comparison, because at the time, I was into that at the time, and so I got the mangas, and I got the mangas, and there were two of them. There was one that came out before there was a TV cartoon, and then there was one that was kind of based on the TV cartoon, but with a lot of reinterpretation, you know, with a lot of freedom to an interpretation, and so you could kind of compare those two things. So, like, I guess it would be interesting to see whether the one that came out before the cartoon was less Western than the cartoon in any great way. And it probably is, because I remember at the time, in my teenage way, going, this is the more pure version, which isn't changed and strange and...
Well, really, the video game for Pokemon is the more pure version.
Well, of course, yeah.
But now that we've moved on to video games, which are still very much a part of Japanese pop culture, Mika, do you play games at all?
Growing up, I played so I do remember the Nintendo, where, you know, you blow on the thing before putting it in the slot. And it plays
yeah.
It's like the very first Nintendo game.
Yeah.
We were playing that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was just probably something from your childhood. You don't keep up with your games at the moment.
No, I do not actually.
Like, I've had all of the Nintendo systems. Even if I still have my failed Virtual Boy, which was their most failed console. Yep, Japanese edition as well. So that would be worth quite a pretty penny on eBay. But also, boys' cartoons and girls' cartoons. My Little Pony is, you know, it's a girls' cartoon, but so many boys watch it. But that's not part of Japanese pop culture, so we'll talk about that some other day.
No, but it is influenced by it. It is influenced by it, and I think this is one of the things that has happened is that because there was this point where, as I say, in the 90s, suddenly the kids were just into anime and they just wanted that. And then the Western cartoons started mimicking it. And at first it was really blatantly obvious, and they would just be like, okay, we'll try and draw like that. And they kind of misunderstood that there wasn't one style. That was something DeviantArt came up with. And now we're finding all the best ways that influence can be taken from another culture's version of that thing are starting to come in. So I have to bring up Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is it's an anime. It's indistinguishable from an anime, but it's entirely Western. Well, I say entirely. It was animated in, I think, where was it animated? Well, it wasn't Western wherever it was animated, but it was directed by Nickelodeon people and things like this, and it was a Western production. But it does everything that we early internet teenagers thought anime was best at: long-running, ongoing stories, and it takes a lot of its art style and the whole thing. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the whole thing is based around sort of Eastern historical imagery and things like that. And then yes, I think My Little Pony is influenced by Sanrio and things like that. There's something about the colors. There's something about the fact that it's a team of different colors, represented by different colors, characters, and just the I think it's a Sanrio thing I'm thinking of. All the aesthetic of sort of rainbows and sparkles and so on. That's come from things like Hello Kitty. They've looked at those.
Okay. That's one thing I do like about Japanese cartoons is the sort of overreaching story arc, and I'm glad you brought up The Last Airbender, because in that show there is a lot of fighting, and Mika has recently taken up martial arts.
Oh.
So, do you want to talk a bit about that, Mika?
Sure. Yeah, I actually spend most of my time now, or most of my free time, I train in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Which is a lot of fun. And I was actually trying to train up for and entering for my first competition, but I don't think I will enter this one just because there's no one in my weight class that entered. So I don't want to have to go up heavier, to a heavier weight class. So I'll wait till the next competition to hopefully I'll be a little more ready then.
But
yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Just saying, fighting people like just probably in the next weight class above you would be a good experience. You can learn more, and you can take away an experience from it.
Yeah, I thought about maybe going up, even maybe competing one weight class above, but you're looking at like a 10 to 20 pound weight difference, so which is pretty big. So I'll probably just wait until the next competition. But yeah, I love it. It's a great workout. It's a great way to learn, self-discipline, humility. 2 months into actually training, I was walking to my car and I actually got attacked. A guy came up from behind me and tried to, basically said he had a knife and that if I screamed, he'd slit my throat. But because of jiu-jitsu, I was able to get his grips off of me, and I started screaming for help, and he ran off. And ever since that, I just really see the importance of just martial arts and just learning to be able to just protect yourself.
Yeah, that must have been quite a frightful experience.
Yeah, it was pretty traumatic, but it just taught me to be a little more cautious of my surroundings.
Yeah, always be cool, especially if you're out in public, because I saw someone almost get run over because they were on their phone at the traffic lights,
right.
And it was like a two-way intersection, and the beeper went off to go this way, and she was walking this way, and she just heard the beeper, on a phone,
Oh.
walked off on the way that hadn't gone off and almost got hit by a car. So it's important to be not only aware of your surroundings, but not be on your phone all of the time.
Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah, there's actually an advertising campaign here in Australia at the moment called "Get Your Hand Off It."
Oh,
Get your hand off it. About getting your hand off your mobile phone. Don't text and drive. Don't have your focus solely on your phone. But we've gotten away from the topic of martial arts. You're not doing kickboxing as well.
I do kickboxing as well on the side,
Hmm.
just for cardio training as well, and it's a good core exercise. But yeah, I found a great gym, and I love the people there. They're like family, so I train there maybe like 5, 6 times a week. So
Okay, well, yeah,
my
and your
lessons have shifted from singing to
to
martial
martial
arts.
arts. Is martial arts something you'd ever take up, like if the opportunity came up to do that, like as a living? Is it a direction you would go?
I don't think I would become a fighter for a living, but I think I'd love to do something fitness related, um,
Hmm.
for a living. That'd be a lot of fun.
Okay, because your partner is a martial artist and dancer, is he not?
He actually, well, his brother is actually Cole. He is an actor, and he was on a show called So You Think You Can Dance. He was one of the finalists on that show, and
Hmm.
he also starred in a off Broadway play in New York called Kung Fu, where he played Bruce Lee.
Hmm.
So that's probably where I'm always you always see me sharing stuff about him on Facebook. But my boyfriend as well, he grew up doing martial arts, so we do jujitsu together. So it's something fun for us to do together.
Okay, cool. What about like being a stunt double? If you've had experience in the entertainment industry and now doing martial arts, that's something you can use in the entertainment industry as like a martial artist stunt double. You could be an Expendables 4.
Yeah, there you go. If anybody needs a 5 foot stunt double, then I'm their lady.
Yeah, as well, there's definitely something if you're interested in it. There's definitely a way you could go. There's nothing stopping you from getting a certificate in fitness training or whatever.
Just think it's a lot of fun with fitness and um, just to be able to push yourself, every day to, work harder. So
Hmm. 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 Yeah. So sort of getting back to the Japanese pop industry, Dave or Maddie, do you have anything else to add? It's recently been revealed, apparently, that Hello Kitty is not a cat. She's a
I,
young, she's a
I just
schoolgirl.
heard about that tonight. As that's very interesting. I always thought Hello Kitty was a cat.
Hold on,
Yeah,
hang on a minute, because she is a cat. So what's this?
so I have a little bit of authority on this, as I'm
Okay.
not sure Dave's aware yet, but
Okay.
I have a problem.
Uh,
Oh,
uh,
right. Now,
Um,
so what you've got there was very clearly a row of cats.
well, yes. No, I think I have a slight obsession with Hello Kitty. It's completely unrelated to my other interests in Japanese pop culture. I have a strong interest in their underground music scene. But Hello
Mhm.
Kitty's always fascinated me, as I see it as the world's greatest case study in branding. And
Mhm.
I always say to people, I've got one here. So this is a pencil, okay? This
Yep.
is like a 7 cents pencil. If I was to
Yeah.
get a bit of ink and mark it with that easily recognizable cat face, I'll have $7.99 for this pencil. Thank you very much. Fantastic. A cursory glance over the English San Reno website very quickly establishes that Hello Kitty has a name, a character, she has a twin sister, she has her own pets, she has an entire, posse of fellow brand endorsing characters. So it's not a surprise. I think for me, what the biggest surprise was that so many people who invest money into surrounding themselves with this visual aesthetic never actually bothered to click on the website and actually learn about the character that they created. Because there's DVDs and everything, Hello Kitty saves King Arthur and all this kind of nonsense. It's fantastic. But
There's
I think
actually, I learned recently that there are really old cartoons. I thought it was sort of quite new, Hello Kitty, and it's definitely not. But what I didn't realize is that there are, yeah, and there are like 80s, like 80s cartoons with voice actors I recognize from, American 80s cartoons of Hello Kitty, and this came as a surprise to me. I didn't think it had filtered through.
Two things come to mind when I think about this, and one of them goes back to the appropriation of culture again, where we'll just take the surface value. Thanks. We don't really want anything deeper than that. We like the look. Okay, we kind of get the aesthetic, and I'll just have that. Thanks, and off I go. But then there's also this thing that's going around a lot nowadays, where the internet really didn't live up to its potential, and we're, instead of breeding a generation of incredibly well-educated, well-informed and open-minded people, we're in fact having smaller social networks, less interaction with other cultures. We're more likely to connect to, say, Ian and I, who are only 6 hours drive apart. We're more likely to connect via Skype than, say, the four of us who are literally on, 3 different points of the world. So I think there's a lot of ignorance kicking around. And
so what you're saying is that this podcast is very much a force in favor of world peace.
I agree, yes. Let's get the UN on the phone. Number 5. But I think it goes back to why the interest in a culture that's so strongly identifiable, like the J-pop culture, hasn't really grown terribly much more of a fan base, because the more people that are interested, the less people that are interested in actually getting into it a little bit deeper, because they have access to the surface, and that's it. And they're happy with that. So, we got Carrie Pamu Pamu that came here and did a concert at the start of the year, but there's no way that the current generation of Morning Musume or any of the Hello Project groups would be able to pull a similarly sized audience here in Australia. So, we'll take the surface, but we won't go looking underneath any more.
What's
than that.
interesting, though, is that nobody here... see, here in the UK, we have a very sort of identifiable pop music world here as well, because, frankly, a handful of producers in the 80s, mainly, built up kind of what sort of... and I mean cheesy pop, really, is like in the UK. And it genuinely surprises me that they haven't appropriated the format. And of this, sort of retiring and bringing in new members of a single band, we haven't, as far as I'm aware, ever had that. It really is that if essentially we think of a band as its members, and people get uppity round here when a band continues to operate under the same name without all the original members. The older bands, not so much. When it's bands from the 60s or whatever who just are obviously going to have different lives as time goes on. But the idea of a band having different members from, say, one year to the next has never been used here, and it surprises me because it seems like something that they could just lift and use and make, British bands like that or American bands like that. And I don't know why they haven't tried it, because, there's clearly money to be made.
Definitely.
And what you were talking there, Maddie, about the surface, I can sort of understand that myself, because growing up before, excuse me, before my interest in the Hello Project and whatnot, I was still that same person. I really had no interest in sort of going to Japan. I thought, oh, it'd be nice to go to Japan one day. I had a passing interest in learning the language. I have a friend up in Queensland. He's got, imagine your Hello Kitty figurines, but they're all just various anime figurines. all through his house, piles and piles of DVDs, but he's not interested in learning the language, and I don't think he's terribly interested in going there. And that's that. I think that surface interest that you were talking about. Once I'd had that key catalyst moment in my life, then that was it. Have to learn the language, far from fluent, and have to go there. I've been there twice already, and can't wait to go back a third time.
Have you only been twice? I thought you'd been a lot more than that.
A lot of people seem to think that, and I have a spiritual theory why. My theory is, see, I'm quite convinced that I am Japanese reincarnate.
Sure.
And other people, on a spiritual level, they can sense that.
Yep.
They think, you've, which is why they think about it. So I've been twice in this incarnation in my life, that because I was on a spiritual level, they detect that I used to live there 1,000 years ago or whatever. It's a crazy theory, but it's the one that seems to work best for me.
Yeah, that'll be it.
No, I've only been twice. I went for 2 weeks in 2010, roughly a year before the big earthquake. What freaked me out about that is I had a dream about a big earthquake, like almost 1 year before it happened. I was very scared of going outside my hotel at the time because I knew I didn't know Japanese. Then when I went back last year, I went for a month and I thought, you know what, stuff it. I can't speak Japanese, they can't speak English, we'll make do, given that 80% of communication is non-verbal. And I was in Tokyo anyway, so most people could sort of manage some level of English. So I got around, I went to Sendai for a week. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, next time I go, hopefully I will be going as a student, and I will do the whole total immersion thing.
So I have a quick question for Mika. What's next? What's your career now? I mean, I asked earlier that you don't try to bank on your previous connections, across the pond, but what's your career now?
I'm still trying to figure that out, actually. I think for the reason why I don't try to bank on my previous experiences with Minimoni is that my passions have shifted. I still love music, but I don't think my heart is not into having a career with it anymore. So it's shifted to with the fitness side of it. So so we'll see where that takes me now. Yeah.
Right, you've almost done the whole, because you've got, I think, about 3 or 4 covers on YouTube of you just playing the piano or the guitar and singing along. You've almost done it in reverse, because most people, they do their YouTube covers, then they become famous, then they end up on stage. You've done it all backwards. You're on stage and now you're doing YouTube covers.
For me, I have no desire to be famous. So I think that's what it is. I love music, but I'm almost a little uncomfortable with attention, if that makes sense. I'm pretty shy. And not that I'm not outgoing, but I'm more of a shy person. So I think attention always made me slightly uncomfortable, or made me feel like, I'm really not that cool. Or it's just me,
Okay, yeah.
So I guess that's where it is, where I'm at with it.
Well, you can take some lessons from today. So appropriating culture is good and bad. So you can start the first American chain of morning musume themed fitness centers.
And covers of Avril Lavigne songs, very important.
Yes, over the radio while everybody does their gym classes.
Yes.
Yeah, I did have one last thing to ask, but it's completely slipped my mind. I think we've been probably talking for long enough now. Has everyone's said their piece?
I should think so.
Does anyone have anything else to add?
I'm pretty good. I've got plenty more to add, but we'll be here all week if I keep going. That's why I don't say much, because I struggle stopping once I start.
Well, what was one last thing that you want to touch on, Maddie?
The last thing I want to touch on.
I'm still trying to figure out what that last thing I wanted was before. It was something about something.
Well, while you're trying to remember, I can tell you a silly story about one of my first experiences with anime, if you like. Because,
Okay, yeah.
Well, you know that time in the end of the 90s when all the teenagers were suddenly excited about the fact that there was anime that was adult?
Right.
Well, I found out about this because a friend came into school one day looking slightly shifty, and he said, "Dave, can you take this video away?" And he gave me this video. And I'm not going to go into what the content of the anime that he gave me was, but those watching who are familiar with Urotsuki Doji, the Legend of the Overfiend, will know some of its legacy. And essentially, the story was that he couldn't be found with it by his parents. I don't know where he got this from. For all I know, it was stolen. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so he was like, "Dave, look, I've got this video, but I basically can't hide it from my mum. Do you think you can hide it from yours? And bear in mind, you're going to have to hide it from your mum. This is not something you can be found with. Do you think you can?" There was no other occasion when I did anything like that, but I guess I kind of just thought, like, I've got to see what's on this video. So I agreed. So I took it home, watched it. Oh gosh! Dropped it down the back of some furniture in my house. Never took it out again. It's probably still there. And so anyway, years later, not many years later, like about a year later or something like this, the anime explosion is happening, and I mention, "Oh yeah, I've seen Urotsuki Doji," and suddenly all these people are like, "What? You've seen that? Don't. Okay, that's not what anime is. Don't think that that's what anime is like, please." And just a couple of years ago, I was talking to a friend on Skype, and he was going, "Hey, I've got that Urotsuki Doji. Have you heard of that?" I'm like, "Yes, I have." And he put it on. He had a monitor that was visible from his webcam, so the monitor was like over there. And he put it on, and you know what? He got the DVD set. You know what? They'd only gone and censored it.
Oh, what a shame.
So he's still never seen the true version.
Oh Lord. Well, I remembered my final thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that I definitely gleaned from today that the anime side of Japanese pop culture has stuck. I think it's definitely going to become an integral part of worldwide contemporary pop culture.
I think not that it's going to. I think it has. I mean, I make comics and things, and so I do keep up to a certain extent with cartoons, and I can't think of the last cartoon I saw that wasn't in some way inspired by the cultural sort of acceptance of anime into the Western stuff now. It's all in there.
Speaking of anime, sorry. Speaking of anime, I know Hello Project, some of the groups do songs for anime, and some of the girls do the voices for the characters in those anime. So just wondering, Mika, if you had any experience in that area.
Yeah, Mini Mori did have their own anime series, which we did the voiceovers for. We do voiceovers for also like Mini Mori video games, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My favorite Mini Mori song is I don't know what it's actually called. It's the Cake song.
Was it the Strawberry Pie song?
I don't know. It's from the movie, The Great Cake Adventure.
Yeah.
The cake, sore wa cake.
Yeah.
Oh, it's cake.
I might remember the dance. It's coming back to me now.
Well, I'll tell you why I like that song. It's not just that, like, I do like it melodically and rhythmically and such, but when I downloaded that movie, or should I say, acquired that movie. Anyway, I was watching the movie. It was very, very Japanese, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
Then,
yeah.
yeah, that song just comes out of nowhere in the beginning. But as the plot goes on and they go to the fairy kingdom and whatever and whatever and whatever, the second occurrence of that song was just brilliant because they were talking about needing ingredients to turn the evil queen fairy back into a cute fairy or whatever. It's like, what are you going to do with all the ingredients? What are you going to make? Then, of course, the song kicks in, cake, we're going to make a cake. And it was just the timing of the timing of that song, the second time it occurred in that film, I thought was absolutely brilliant, which is what made me like that song. But,
I'll have to bust
yeah.
out the movie and watch it again.
Go on
Yeah.
a nostalgia trip.
Yeah, I think probably the most well-known Mini-Money song, as far as I'm aware, is the telephone one. Rin, rin, rin.
Oh,
Even I know that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a personal favorite, Mika?
personal favorite. Personal favorite. The Hinamatsuri song was really cute. I did like that song. Other than that, probably our first song, Jankenpyeon.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think that's pretty much wraps everything up for tonight's episode. Thank you very much for agreeing to this, Mika.
Thanks
It's
for having
absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. It was great. Thank you, Maddie and Dave, for being a trooper, showing up with a cold, even though he suspected he might not.
Get some sleep, Dave.
Yep. Well, I might do.
Yep.
You have
All right.
my
Hello, doggy.
sleeping.
What is it? She or a he?
She's sleeping on the couch with me this whole time.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I asked you about her breed on Facebook. She's a rather interesting mix.
Yeah, she's a mix. She's a stray actually. I found her behind a warehouse a few years ago.
Okay.
She's been with me since.
Oh, very lucky dog to have been found. Because there's a lot of videos, and I share some of them, about these old dogs that are very under the weather, and someone takes them in. It's a feel-good story about how the dog came good.
Yeah, they're the best.
Yeah. So she seems fun. Like, you share some videos of her sometimes. She seems very happy and fun-loving and a typical dog, really.
She's sweet, yeah. She's my child.
Yeah. My sister has 4 cats,
Aww.
and it's the same attitude. Her cats are her children.
Exactly.
So to speak. Yeah. Okay, but then children is a topic for another day. All right. So, but now that it's brought up, I've got to ask: you think starting a family is something you'll do, Mika, or are you happy with the dog for now?
I we'll see. We'll see where that goes. See if I can get a few more years of jujitsu in, and then
Yep. Okay.
there. Or I may just have to rescue a lot of dogs in place of that. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
you
No
for coming.
worries. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, and I will see Maddie and Dave hopefully on Sunday for our next topic of steampunk. And thank you again, Mika.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Very nice
Yeah.
meeting you.
Thanks.